Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with the Secrets of the Universe. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of different topics that all tie in together, and at least one of them will be a little bit controversial, but hopefully it won't be too bad for you. We're going to be talking first about the multiverse, and if you're unaware, there's a theory that there are multiple universes that are all occurring simultaneously. I believe this. I think it is part of our divine experience, and that it is part of our divine path. And where we are in the multiverse depends upon the choices that we made. Let me explain. We're going to go over to this graphic now, and you're like, Pitt, this isn't the multiverse, this is a chain reaction. And you're right, this is a chain reaction because that is what the multiverse is. The current area that you are in right now, you have brought into existence by your decisions. No one else's decisions are necessary for your multiverse to work. And how this works is as such. Let's say that this is you in your world right here, this one little spot right here. And you have a simple decision to make. Your simple decision is, am I going to eat at home or am I going to go out to eat? Well, let's say that you make the decision to go out to eat. That's going to change where the multiverse goes because there is also an alternative reality where you personally have made the decision to stay at home and eat. But you, in this multiverse, have decided, I'm going to go out to eat. That's going to give us these two options here. And in this option, you're deciding to go out and eat. And in this option, you're deciding to stay at home. And both of them happen. But your consciousness, who you are riding in the meat suit, your spark of divinity, takes this path along with this multiverse. Well, while you're out to eat, you have another decision to make. And the decision is, am I going to eat at McDonald's or am I going to eat at Taco Bell? Right? And so, depending on what decision you make, you, as a consciousness, go to that particular multiverse. But in the other one, you also went to the other restaurant. So, say you picked McDonald's and you go into McDonald's and you get your food, but in another alternate multiverse, you are going into Taco Bell to get your food. And so you go into McDonald's, and inside of McDonald's, there's another choice, and you don't even realize that you're choosing it. You pick your food, and it just so happens that the meat patty that you pick gets you sick, right? And so that's a whole nother choice. But then there's another one where you didn't get sick. It's more complicated than this, though, because this guy staying at home chose between beef and chicken, and then they choose between the beef and chicken, and it creates another alternative. And if you chose chicken, all of a sudden you get salmonella. This represents how the bottlenecks work. Regardless of the decision that you are choosing to make, there is a point where you're going to get sick, right? And whether you get sick with E. coli from the burger or whether you get sick from salmonella from the chicken depends entirely on which path that you choose. There is also a path where you don't get sick at all. That happens at the same time. So let's go back to the original little drawing right here. We got the original guy. And he's making the decision to go out to eat. And he's also making the decision to stay home and eat. But there's other alternate universes springing off at the same point. And you see how this one goes into 2, but then it really goes into 3? It's something like that, because while you're here making the decision, like before you've made the decision to do either one of the other ones, you die. Bam. Or you have a stroke and you don't die. Or you have a heart attack and you don't die. Or the ceiling falls on your head. All of these things happen every second. Every single second, there is an alternative universe where you are dying right now. There is an alternative universe where you are not in it right now because you died 10 years ago. All of these things are because every person is creating their own separate version of the multiverse. Now, this is where it gets a little wonky. And we're going to get into slightly controversial territory here because not everybody is capable in your multiverse of being independent. Oh, hold up. Wait, what? Some people are only responding to the programming that they have. And the programming that they have is not negotiable. They can't change their programming. That's why it is perfectly okay to let some people be wrong. You should, by all means, try to educate people, try to help people, try to bring people up, to bring them out of the NPC state. Because what happens is, if you are aligned in a goal with someone else, say for instance, it's you and your wife, right? Me and my wife. And we have come to what Napoleon Hill calls a master key alliance, right? And this is us together deciding to focus our decisions in a certain direction. Because we are aligning our decisions in a certain direction, we are occupying pretty close to the same space in the multiverse. Now, because of that, we are both player characters, because we together are making the choice to go forward in a certain direction. But there are people out there who are not making the same decisions as us, who are taking a different path. And while that is okay, they are on that other path and they have no deviation built into their programming. They can't respond other than the way which they have been programmed. You see this in your life. There are people that you know that cannot pull themselves out of that box, whatever that box may happen to be, whichever side of the aisle you happen to align with. Like, I'm not trying to make this into a left or right thing, but one side does tend to get more offended when these type of memes pop up. But know that I am not targeting you. This can happen to anyone and does. In your reality, I might be an NPC. But in this reality, in my reality, I am the player character, and you might be the NPC. And just because we are both player characters right now does not mean that farther along in the simulation, let's call it that, right? I don't really see it as a simulation, even though I believe we entirely exist inside the construct of the mind of God. That is the processing that we are responding to. So we are trying out different versions of reality for the divine, because the divine is divine and is all things. It cannot be inside of itself. You can't, like, your pinky is part of you, but it is not you. The fingernail on the pinky is part of the pinky, but it is not all of the pinky. We are part of God. We are a divine, inspired spark of God sent here on a purpose to experience life for the divine, so that the divine can know life. And in order to do that, he wants to know, and I say he in a very broad sense because it is accepted vernacular, but he wants to know all of it. So in order to know all of it, we need the multiverse, because he needs to know what it would be like if I had McDonald's, and what it would be like if I had Taco Bell, and how I would do with salmonella and E. coli. And so those two things happen simultaneously. I am in control of the multiverse that I am in. And that is where we pull in some manifestation. Manifestation is pulling into existence the multiverse that you want to actually exist in. Now, it is prerequisite before you start doing this. And I don't say prerequisite lightly. It's not something that I am inclined to, right? It is a prerequisite that you have discipline over yourself before you can do this. You can try. You will mess it up if you do. If you try manifestation without the proper discipline, you will pull the wrong things into your life. And not because it's inevitable, although it is. There is a reality where the opposite happens for every manifestation. You are aligning towards the right one. And if you have the focus that is required, then you can make that into a reality. You can pull that into your reality. The Chronicles of Amber is a very good series to read. You want the first 5 books. I think his name is Corbin. But that's the cycle you want. You don't want his son Merlin later. You want the cycles of Corbin. And it is pulling, it shows in a practical way the way that he pulls things into life. And
if you can visualize this. You are walking down a street, and on the street there are various things along the highway. You see cars, different shapes, different sizes, different colors. You see trees, different shapes, different sizes, different colors. Light posts, all the things that are inside of yards in a neighborhood. And as you're walking down the street, you can decide that one thing in that entire decoration you can change. And by concentrating on it and pulling it forward into your life, you can make the color change on a light bulb. Or you can make a different light fixture appear on someone's house. Or somebody's car changes from red to blue. That is pulling and manifesting, and this is a broad generalization because it is generally not that drastic, although it can be. What you need to pull out of it is that is you focusing on the one specific desired result out of all of the possibilities that there are, with a dedication and focus to just make it happen. In order to make it happen, you have to believe first that it can and that it will. Now, those are two separate things. They sound like the same thing, but there's a big difference in vocabulary for a reason. There's a reason why the English language is so complicated, because the intention of the word can make all of the difference. Now, it is entirely possible to know that God can change your life, that He can remove from you addiction, poverty, pain, all of these things. And there is another level of knowing that it will happen. It is hard. That is what Jesus was talking about when he called Peter out of the boat, right? And he's like, and Peter steps out and he stands and then he starts to sink. And he's like, you of little faith. It's because he doesn't think that it will happen. He knows that he can. He knows that it is a possibility, but he doesn't call it into existence. That is what manifestation is. Now, in order to get the discipline over your mind, you need to meditate. You need it. I know some people don't like that word, but that's unfortunate for you. Like, I'm not here to mollycoddle and to cut words for you so that you feel a little bit better about it. You need to meditate. Prayer is when you speak to God and you talk to God about your problems. Prayer is when you say, Lord, thank you for this. I need this. Thank you. Or like, whatever you happen to be praying about. I need this specific thing, or I want this specific thing, or whatever. Meditation is two things. One, it is waiting for God to talk to you. He will. He will answer you. It will be clear to you if you give it the time and the intentionality for it. But the second thing is it's learning to discipline yourself. The point of meditation is to achieve the oneness, to be at one with all things. And that is definitely a possibility. I can affirm that because I have been there. And what you need to do is to completely gain discipline over your mind in a manner of emptying it, becoming an empty vessel. And then when you have the discipline to become the empty vessel or the blank screen or whatever that happens to be, then God will touch it and He will write what He needs to talk to you about on that screen. That's what happens for me. Sometimes it's auditory, but most of the time it's visual because I have aphantasia and I can't visualize myself. And I think God gives me that so that I know, right? I know without a doubt. And so, because I can know without a doubt, I am actively pulling forward what I'm looking for. I don't expect a dramatic change. Don't expect the dramatic change. It can happen. You can do that. People don't realize how often it happens. And when they do, they explain it away. But here's a really good example of that. There was a woman who was in a car wreck. And the car flipped and landed on top of her child. And unassisted, she grabbed the car and flipped it over. She had the absolute certainty Not only that it could happen, but that it would happen. I can promise you that by the results that were given. She knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that not only could she pick a car up off of her child, but that it would happen because she was going to save her child. That is the single-minded focus that is required for manifestation. And that is a big deal. Have you ever tried to pick up a car? Like even a little one. I've done it. Like me and four of my homeboys picked up a Volkswagen and stuck it between these two posts so he couldn't get out. Hilarious joke. We had so much fun with that. We tell that story all the time. But them things are heavy, bruh. And like for this woman to pick up the car by herself, and I'm not talking about a Volkswagen. This is like a Ford LTD. She flipped that car by herself. That is the execution of faith in the manner which is necessary. That is the single-minded focus that I'm going to save my child. It doesn't matter to me if I blow my legs out or my back. And guess what? She didn't do it. She wasn't thinking about that. She just did what she needed to do. That is a real story. That really happened. Things like that happen all the time. Like all the time. You hear stories and people rationalize it that there was intervention, and maybe there was. I'm not opposed to that. But I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that if you have the proper focus, and that moment is a good example of that focus, because everything else is gone except that one goal. And when that one goal is all that you are holding, when you have the discipline to do that on your own, without the extraordinary circumstances of your child being crushed by a 2,000-pound car, when you have the discipline of your mind, because you have been exercising your mind in order to have that discipline, you can literally call into existence the life that you want. Do not go into it with the expectation that it is going to happen. What normally has to happen is that you have the focus and you call it into existence by writing it down and speaking it out loud. Those two things are another necessity. That's something that people want to skip for some reason. I've done it myself. You want to skip at least one of those two parts. Probably the writing it down. You're like, well, I'm saying it. This is me. I'm speaking for me. I'm saying it. What do I need to write it down for? First off, let's talk about the two things that we're doing, right? First off is that we're going to talk about the speaking. We've already talked before about how all of creation is a vibration. All energy is one energy, and we are only held into separateness by the different harmonics that hold us together. Our different chakras holding us individually together. The earth's chakras holding it together, and the trees' chakras hold it together, and all of that. And so when you speak, the words that you choose to use hold power. And when I say power, I mean it. I mean the literal power to change things. And if you don't believe that, then you've never had somebody talk bad to you. Because somebody talking bad to you can completely change how you feel for the day. If somebody says, you are a piece of fucking shit, pardon my language, it makes you feel a certain way. Them words hold power. And they don't hold power over your physical body. They didn't change anything about your physical body. It changes the harmonics in you to hear those words. But on the alternative, if somebody says, you are great, you are wonderful, and I love you, that changes a whole different harmonic. That aligns you in the way that you need to be aligned. That is the power of the voice. That is the power of the spoken word. And as powerful as that is, there's a reason we call it spelling. Because if you write down your intentions, it is setting to them a firmness that speaking them does not have. Speaking the harmonics changes the world around you, but writing down the permanence of the idea, of the goal, of the whatever, changes that too in a fundamental level in the material plane, because you are creating it as a concept beyond the vibration, which is calling it. You're writing it down creates the concept from which it can be built. Write down your specific goals. Write down your idea, your best ideas on how to achieve those goals, and be diligent in doing so. Now, you might make the argument, and I'm going to argue against you, that just that is going to do it for you. Like, oh, well, if I do that, that's all of it. But no, there is a metaphysical aspect involved in that. And if you are intentional, 3 times, right? If you are intentional in what you are saying and what you are writing, and you put the right energy into it. Remember yesterday we talked about the prayer, right? If you put the energy into the saying or the writing, it manifests. That is where manifestation roots. It is discipline. First over your mind, then over your body. You don't get to go flying off the handle and doing things that really are not conducive to your best life, right? I mean, you can. You have the freedom of will. You can choose whichever one of these little worlds you want to exist in. You can choose that. You can be in the worst possible world ever if that's what you want. I don't. I want a life of abundance to the point of blessings. Like, not blessings for me, but blessings for others. I want to be able to not only pay my bills, but also be able to bless other people. Like, it's been a long time since I've been in that position, but that is what I am manifesting, because that is my goal. Like, I could give two shits about material things. I've got a house because my wife pushed me into it, and not in a mean way. My wife makes me a better person. I would have been perfectly happy living in a trailer. I would have been perfectly happy living in a camper. I would have been perfectly happy living in a tent in the woods. But my wife helps me to strive towards better. I want to be able to help other people pay their bills when they can. That is the life that I am manifesting. That is what my goal is. Like, with the game. Like, I'm building a game. I'm recruiting people, not actively. I'm not putting out a job search or anything like that. But the right people are going to come to me, and I'm going to be able to bless them on the backside of this game. Like, I can't pay you, but on the backside of this, when this goes live and we start selling, you get pieces of it, right? That is part of the manifestation process as well. Like, you have to plan all of it. You have to plan, okay, in the specific instance of the game, all right, this is the game. This is the idea for the game. This is the overarching storyline of the game. This is the setting for the game. This is the details that I need to complete in order to make the game. I have to create the assets. I have to create the landscape. I have to create the programming. I have to do visual editing and animations and all of these parts that go into making a video game. Well, I'm not qualified for all of that. So I have to identify the parts that I can probably do. I can probably do a good chunk of that. And because I can't do all of that, what I need to do is pull specific people to me. And in order to pull the specific people to me, I have to identify what I need from those specific people. And then, and only then, once I have identified it, wrote it down, and spoke it into existence, can it come to me. It's not going to just randomly pop up. I have to put in the effort and the energy. I have to be diligent in my end of what I can do, because I can do some things. I can build assets in Blender to import into Unreal. I do that. I make videos on that. And so manifestation is not just I want. And a lot of people really seem to think that. The law of attraction, as people understand it, not the law that I talked about yesterday, but as people understand it, is just, well, if I focus on this one thing, it's going to bring it to me. And that's not going to happen. Like, it will on a minor level. You will probably get some of the things that you are trying to get, but they're going to come with catches. They're going to come with hooks that are going to pull you darker. Like, that's how that's going to work. You're going to be, instead of taking the time to have the discipline and to set a plan and to work towards it diligently and to give the energy out so that it can be returned and to follow all 8 laws of creation, instead of doing that, you're going to be like, I want this. And so you're going to pray about that and focus your energy on that. I want this, I want this, I want this. Whatever this happens to be, this one specific thing. And I'm going to pray about this one specific thing until I get it. well, you're going to get it, right? Have you ever heard the story of the monkey hand? Like it's an old story. It was a short story. I cannot remember who wrote it, and I didn't think to look it up before. But it explains the unintended consequences, right? The lady gets a monkey paw, and the monkey paw has the ability to grant a wish, right? And so she wishes for, well, first somebody wishes for money. I think she gets 3 wishes. I think the first wish is for money, and she gets the money. Like she gets what she wanted because her kid died. And she gets paid insurance. And then she wishes for something else, and then she wishes for her son back, and she gets him back, but he's a zombie, right? And so that's the unintended consequences for the lack of discipline. That is trying to pull something before you are ready. That is why I have been intentional in the steps that I am releasing and the order in which I'm releasing. You should watch this and in the playlist in order. Like, I'm not going to tell you you have to, but you really should, because I lay out the groundwork for this there. And the unintended consequences are real. They really are. And you may receive the blessing that you are looking for, right? You may be praying diligently for the thing that you want, but it may come with the unintended consequences, because if you do not have the discipline, then the other side is going to give you what you want, because God requires the discipline. God does. That is part of your experience. Your purpose is to walk up the hill, like with the spiral of choice. I've talked about that before too. You start out, you're on the middle plane, and you have a decision all the time. That we talked about the 2 decisions earlier, right? Well, you have a decision in everything you do to either go towards the creation source or towards the destruction source, the male or the female energy. And your choice is like walking up a spiral. Picture a screw. Then it's got the spiral that goes up, and there's a spiral that goes down. You start in the middle. And if you're not actively choosing to walk up the hill, because you are walking either way you are in movement. If you're not actively choosing to walk up, then you are passively choosing to walk down. You might be actively choosing to walk down, but you cannot passively choose to walk up. It is a choice that you must make for yourself. I can't make it for you. I can't push you into choosing anything. I can't tell you anything that you have to do. Nothing. Even inside the laws. Like, I can't tell you that you can't kill someone. You can do that whether I tell you not to or not. I don't call for violence, but people are out there hurting people all the time. I think that part is not on me. My control is me. And I have to focus and discipline. I have to be in charge of where my multiverse is going. Now, inside the multiverses, we've talked a good deal about that, and I don't think we hit quite enough on this one. If offended equals true, run program, individual response, outreach. The NPC room is dehumanizing. We are all unique and special. The deviation from script. Certain people can't deviate from their script, right? They cannot push past, we are programmed this way. They receive this programming in a lot of ways. Our music is pushing a program. Our television entertainment, our movies, our books, poetry, like all of the things that affect us emotionally seem to be pushing us in a certain direction. I don't like that direction. I like individuality. I like choice. I like being the person that I am. But in my multiverse, these people are all NPCs. In their multiverse, they are the player character. They are the one in charge of that. Now, the Mastermind Alliance, I did hit on that briefly, and I'm going to talk about it again. Like, that's a really good way of doing it. Like, the way that Napoleon Hill describes it in his 16 points, actually, like, the system works. He's missing a couple of things because the intentionality isn't quite aligned right. But if you and another player character come together and you make it an MMO, right? This is our game now. This is my guild. These are my teammates. These are the people that I play with on a daily basis. If you consciously and honestly come together in a mutual agreement for the end goal, you'll achieve it. Look at the raiding guilds. Like, I go back to WoW because I played a lot of World of Warcraft, y'all. A lot for the Alliance. And so, in a raiding guild, you've got a lot of different people. They have a wide scope of what they're trying to do. But for a brief period, they all come together into the same multiverse. And they all share the same experience as player characters. But once the raid is over, once you've achieved the objective, or not, which was more likely in vanilla, if you either achieve or don't achieve it and you go your separate ways, you're back into the part where they are not the player characters in your multiverse. You can completely choose from that point forward, or even while you're playing, but from that point forward, you can choose to never pick up that game again, to never again open that program or see any of those people. And from that point forward, they are no longer active participants in your multiverse. Okay, but if you form this guild and you are honest with it and you are forthright and firm and disciplined in what you are trying to achieve with the Alliance, right? And it's me and my wife and my kids and a couple other select people. And if we come together and everybody agrees that everybody is trustworthy and that everybody's goals are the same, and you are honest with it and you really set forth with it, then you form a multiverse compact, right? You are all working towards the same thing, and it has no choice but to materialize. If you have one person being disciplined and with the faith but the size of a mustard seed, if you have one person doing that, it is enough to move a mountain, to cast it into the sea. But if you got three people, just three people doing the same thing, you can change the face of the earth. You could really do that now. It's probably just going to be in your multiverse. So if the three of you come together and you say, we are going to change this specific thing, and you have the discipline of focus and the correct intentions, and you are obeying the 8 laws of creation, and you're doing it with the honest earnestness, you can literally change things. Now, you can change things for the worse or for the better, so you need to be very careful with your intentionality. You need to be very careful with the words you speak, especially to the people who are close to you. Do not curse your children by calling them dumb or stupid or any of the derogatory things that you could call them. Uplift your children, because words hold power. Write down goals that you want for your children. It doesn't have to be their goals. They're going to make their own thing. But if you set forth for them while they are children a path, and I was not very specific with the path that I chose for my children, but I did choose a path for my children. And the path I chose for my children was a path of denial. The path of denial that I chose for my children was to deny them the things that I hated in my life as a child. So my children have never heard me call them dumb or stupid. They've never heard me call them lazy. They've never heard me raise my voice to my wife. Not one time. They've never heard me be disrespectful. They've never seen me put my hands on anyone. They've never seen me intoxicated past the point of being able to function. They've never seen all of the things that I hated in my childhood once from me. And that was an intentional goal that I set forth. It is something that I skipped the one step. I did not write it down. I wish I would have, but I didn't. I did vocalize it, though. I did speak that. I did say it was going to happen, and it did. I've got great kids who have never seen any of those things and never do those things. My kids are great. They talk up to people. They lift people up. They are leaders. They do what needs to be done for the most part. They do have a little bit of procrastination in them, and they get it honest, so I can't be too mad, right? But that is the power of manifestation too. I completely changed it in a generation, the direction of my family name. Completely changed. It will no longer be the same as it was before. I changed that through the power of intention, through the power of manifestation with the grace and will of God. These NPCs, don't be mad at them. Like, they're out there and they are earnestly trying to do what they think is best. But some of these out here doing this, these people are out there just to test you sometimes. Like, sometimes there are things brought into your life just to see if you're going to respond to it. We talked yesterday about the stumbling blocks that will appear on your path, right? And the rescues that are possible, and the stumbling blocks to bring you down. And you have to learn to start recognizing those. When you see somebody making a dumb comment on social media, just let it ride. I've got one that I haven't responded to for a couple of weeks, where something about them Tupac videos just bring out the racist. And it's always the same shade of racist popping out. And it's the one shade can't be racist, and it is an NPC. That is an NPC response, because you haven't given that any thought. If you had given that any thought, you would not be saying that dumb shit. And so I have to learn that that is just an NPC response, and it is just there to get a response from me. Because when you go up to an NPC, they offer you a quest, right? If they're a responsive NPC, they offer you a quest, and you can either choose to accept or deny that quest. And if you accept that quest, you can either choose to complete it or to ignore it. And so you can either choose to respond or to not. Especially on social media, but even in real life, face to face. If somebody is popping off dumb shit and they're just saying things that are factually untrue, like, all right, bro. Like, you should always try to correct the truth. But some people will not receive it. And so it's like, all right, bro, and just walk away. Just let them ride. They're going to get upset. They're going to be like, but that's because they're NPCs. Like, not everybody is meant to be a part of your life. Not everybody that you want in your life is meant to be part of your life. Not everybody that you know or have known or will know is meant to stay in your life. Some people are seasoned people. Some people are day people. Some people are life people. But some people are not. And some people that are in your family are not. Some people that are your close friends right now, in 5 years you won't speak to. Especially if you're trying to change your life for the better. Because chances are the people around you will not understand that. They cannot conceptualize the things that I'm talking to you about. They cannot conceptualize that it is entirely within their own power to change their own life. And this goes back to that same argument with the racism. People talk an awful lot. And the things that they talk an awful lot about don't really make sense sometimes. This one particular comment over on YouTube is, this guy says that making decisions based on melanin has worked really fine for the non-melanated part of the equation there. To a degree, he's correct. He's right. He's got basic facts. But he's limiting his scope of history to a very narrow portion of history. And I mean very narrow. For the first greater part of recorded history, white people didn't even record their history. And that part of history contains racist stuff. Attila the Hun invaded China because of racism. The Ottoman Empire ruled the deserts because of racism. And they were not nice to the other races. They enslaved them. They still do. But they did. That is the history of the world. Until this particular effort in freedom that we have now, there was no such thing as free men. There was, before 1776, every single person on the planet, with the exception of the 0.1% royalty, belong to someone else. If you were not the king, then you belong to the king. Even if you were an earl or a baron or a duke, you swore fealty to the one who owned you. You had a greater degree of freedom than the African slaves that were here. That is absolutely true. But some of them did. Have you looked at serfdom at all? Did you see what happened to the Irish people at all? How about the Scottish, the Welsh? Any bells? Okay. How about when the Roman Empire conquered everybody? Was that based on race? Like, was that because of melanin? When the Romans killed the Germans, was that melanated? When the Romans killed the British, was that melanated? Is that... No, that is just human hate. That's what that is. There is a history in this country for a short period of time of some very bad things, and I hate every single bit of it. I do. But to say that everything that we have now is entirely dependent on that is dumb, beyond the scope of dumbness. Because what we have now was actually only achievable on the backside of slavery. The Industrial Revolution, the cotton gin, the automobile, flight, telecommunications, all of that only came about whenever freedom was there. Whenever we released the multiverse of someone else's will and started with the multiverse of the individual's will. All men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Right? That is the foundation that we have been building on for 250 years now. We did not start it right. You are absolutely correct. We did not start it right at all. We started it, we tried, we freed one group of people, white males, right? And then a little bit later, after great stress and strife, we realized that that scope needed to be enlarged. And then more, and then more. And we have been constantly accepting new, free peoples ever since. And sometimes it has taken bloodshed, and that is true. And there is still residual ridiculousness, that is true as well. But it is not isolated. You do not get that in your genes. You don't get born hating another person. That shit is taught to you. You are taught to hate somebody because of the color of their skin. And it does not matter what color your skin is. If you, like, I was taught, I've been very honest and open about it. Like, when I grew up, it was a very racist household. Very much so. When people, like colored people, melanated people, black people, whatever you like to call them, whenever they would walk down the road, they would cross over into the field, across the road from my house when I grew up, and walk down and then get back on the road. That was real. And that was because of my dad. I broke that through the power and grace of God. Like, that was pulled from me. I don't see shit like that no more. That's not part of my reality any longer. I recognize that you, whatever your melanation level is, are a full, complete human, and you're just trying to work your best on your path. I don't hold melanin or sexual organs against anyone. I don't hold sexual preference against anyone. You start messing with kids, I got a problem. But other than that, I don't care what you do with your genitals. I don't care what color your melanation is. That's not part of my multiverse anymore. My universe, we're getting rid of that differentiation. How about you join me in my multiverse? Let's be player characters together. Let us, as a crew, come together and decide that that is no longer going to be an issue. Let us, as a crew, come together and say, we are going to go forward from here and not pay attention to the dumb shit anymore. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up because I'm definitely getting long-winded on this one, but there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be said here, and there's still, like, we're going to come back to these topics and things as we go along, but the basics, there is a multiverse. That is almost certain. Like, I can't be 100% certain because I've never been in the other ones, right? I've always been the player character in this one. But there are NPCs, there are people out there that it does not matter what data you show them, are not going to believe you. There are people out there, I'm one of them in some ways, because you cannot in any way convince me that we took appropriate measures over the last couple of years, because I have knowledge beyond that. I know better. So there is no data that you can show me that is going to change that for me. And so to you, with your data, I'm going to be the NPC. To you, these other people are NPCs sometimes. Now, sometimes they are player characters, and y'all are aligned, and they can be deviated from the script, but a lot of these people on social media are bots, y'all. And by bots, I don't mean some random computer program. I mean people that are just programmed that way. These people don't know what they're talking about when they fight you. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, provided that you are doing the things that I talk about here, right? The things like following the 8 laws of creation. That is a big deal. The 7 sins balancing. That's a big deal. These things need to happen in order for you to be making correct assessments of things. And if you personally are taking into account the other side, and you are honestly looking at their arguments, and you're not straw-manning them, but instead you are strong-manning them, if you are doing that and you are coming to your conclusions in good faith with good data, then you're making the right choice. But these people aren't doing that at all. Like, they're not doing the slightest part of that. They are parroting what they have been told. They are but NPCs. They have only been programmed. If offended equals true, run program, individual response, outrage. And so, don't take it personally. Like, when people are just past the point of where you can reason with them, like, don't be mean, don't talk mess to them. Like, be nice, be cordial, and disengage. Just and move away, because it's up to you. And by engaging in the ridiculousness with the people who will not look at facts regardless of what they may be, by engaging with those people, you are only creating negative output. And what you put out, you will receive. Right? The law of returns, that is real. The square cube law, it is real. So if you are out here arguing, you will find more arguments, and you will not always be right in them. But if you're disengaging and doing your own research and manifesting inside of your own multiverse, you don't have to worry about these NPCs. They don't have an effect on you. Like, the things that are coming into my life are because of my decisions, not because of someone else's. Now, in a minor way, they are because of the current situation. Like, you can't overlook gas prices. You can't overlook food prices. But you know what? I'm blessed. Like, I got food. Like, we got money coming in. We got a house. We got heat. We got air. We got water. We got all the blessings of life. Like, we're taken care of completely. I'm fine. So as bad as it is out there, because a large part of that is due to discipline and making the correct choices, because you can't run out to the bar every weekend and blow $300 and then expect to have that $300 for the things that it was originally intended for, right? If you're taking your rent money and you're blowing it on blow, then you don't have it to spend on rent. You're making bad choices. That's not the universe, that's you. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I hope I have brought a little bit of enlightenment and maybe some comedic relief to a complicated set of subjects. This is not just one, but 3. But they all tie together. It is very important. This is one of the levels of responsibility. This is an understanding of a greater power, and this is the beginning. Like, we're about to get into some energy pulling and actual manipulation of things. And so this is more groundwork. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. I am. Till next time, this has been Pitt. Peace. I love you.